Hey, Minnie. So, what are we doing today? Well, I don't know. Let's ask Miss Fanya.
Welcome back to school. I hope everybody enjoyed their holidays. But now we're back to the lessons. We covered 6.1 before reviewing for the midterm. Now we're going to start off with 6.2, which is applying properties of rational exponent, which deals with something that we talked about before, that when you multiply numbers with the same base, you get to add their exponents. When you divide same bases, then you subtract them, and when they're next to each other within a parentheses, one inside, one outside, then you multiply them there. So let's go ahead and do this little thing. The first example that we have is 5 divided by the cube root of 5. Now this here, please remember, it has a little 3. So it's the same thing as having 5 divided by 5 to the 1/3. Now keep in mind that 5 on top actually represents a 1. Now, because the 5 on top and the 5 on the bottom, it's the same base, we get to subtract them. So we have 5 minus 1/3, which would give me the answer of 5 2/3. So keeping that in mind on your worksheet from today, let's look at number 2. Now number 2 has this problem. Since both of them have the same base, it's division, you have to subtract your exponent. So we have 4 2/3 minus 1/3, which gives me 4 1/3. So those are pretty simple. This one is going to be similar. You should be able to do number 7 because it's very much like it. So please remember, same base. This is why when you're dividing, that's when you have to subtract your exponents. So moving on to the next one. Now, if you do recall when we had 32, the square root of 32. Now that square root of 32, remember if it didn't have a number, it was understood to be a 2 up there. Well, it's the same thing. Remember when we had to break down the 32? And 32 would be a 2 by 2 times 2 times 2. Because 2 times 2 is 4 times 2, 8 times 2 is, sorry, there should be another 2. Times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Now, because of that 2, then you had to look for pairs of 2. There's one pair of 2, and there's another one. So that means that we were able to take out 2 of those 2's outside. So my answer would be something like this. But because those 2's are outside, you can multiply them, and that gives you 4 square root of 2. Now, if I had the 32, but a 3 there, so the numbers inside, there's 5. We already know that. Because it's a 3, in this case, because of that 3, we need to look for groups of 3. So we look for a group of 3, and there it is. How many groups do you have? 1. So we write 1, 2 outside. What's left over inside? 2 times 2, which is 4, and don't forget to put the cube root. Now, the next example, what happens if you had 32 to the 4th root? Well, we would rewrite it out the same. The 5 2's and the 4, but now we have to look for a group of 4. Very good. So now, once we look at it, we have how many groups of 4? Only 2. Only 1. What's left over inside? A 2, and don't forget to put the little 4. So this is the way that you would do a problem like this, which takes us to the next example, which is number 5 from your worksheet. Now, when you look at number 5 from your worksheet, they both have the same cube 4th root because they both have a little 4. So we're going to multiply the numbers inside, which is 2 times 8, which gives me a 16. Don't forget to put the little 4 out there. But this 16, I need to break it down. I will break it down into 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16. When you look at this, I'm looking for a group of what? What's the number outside of the radical? Or the square root? It's a 4. So I'm looking for a group of 4. And I only have 1. So that means I take out a 2. Is there anything left over inside? No. So this would be my final answer. Now, when you look at number 3 is the kind of problem where you have something. And let me go back to number 5 actually. When you look at number 5, you should be number 8 is very much like that one. So you should be able to do that one. So looking at number 3, we have something inside, something outside. When you have something like this in the exponents, you have to multiply them. So this is where I get 6. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. So that 6 over 12 reduces to 1/2. Now, number 11, after we do number 11, you should be able to work on number 6, number 12. So we have the 4th root of 32 and the 4th root of 2 because they both have the same root. First of all, it's division. We could divide the numbers. What's 32 divided by 2? That right there is a 16. So don't forget to put the 4th root. Now remember, you're trying to condense this as much as you can to make it easier. That looks like something we've done all the way on top. So we actually have the 4th root of 2 times 2 times 2. I'm looking for a group of 4. So there it is. And so my answer right there would be 2. Now keep in mind, we are used to seeing square root of x. Now remember, it is square root because we don't see it, but there's a 2 there. This is the same thing as having x to the 1/2. When you have an x with a 3 there, this is actually x to the 1/3. That should be an exponent. Sorry, it's so big. When we have a 4th root of x, it's like having x to the 1/4. So now this is going to take us into example number 14. Problem from the worksheet that you have. On problem 14, we have the square root of x to the 2/5. Now, remember that square root actually means x to the 2/5 raised to the 1/2. And just like the previous problem that we did when we had this, we had to multiply them. What's 2 times 1? It's 2. 5 times 2 is 10. Now this reduces to x in 1/5. Now the next example is going to be 16. Now in 16, it has a 3, it has a 16, x to the 4th inside. Now this one, why not break it down like the previous numbers that we've done before? It is a cube root. 16 becomes 2 times 2, which is 4, times 2, which is 8, times 2, which is 16. That x to the 4th actually means that there's x, 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 and another x. So when we look at this, because of that 3, we are looking for groups of 3. So there's one group of 3, there's one group of x's. Because we have a group, we get to kick that outside. So we have a 2 and an x that we kick outside. We put our square root. What is left over? Well, it's a 2 and an x. And don't forget to put that cube root on there. This would be the answer to number 17. Now, when you look at 20, it looks pretty complicated, but it's basically the same type of problem. It's already on your paper. So this is like number 20, and I'm doing the work for you. It's the same thing. It's 64. It's a cube root. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32, times 2 is 64. X to the 3rd, x, 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 and don't forget it has a y. That's you expanding the whole top. The bottom stays the same. We're not going to do anything to that right now. But because of that 3, we're looking for groups of 3. One group of 3 there, one group of 3 there, and one group of x's. So we actually have to kick out a 2, and then another 2, and then an x. And what's left over inside? Just a y. Now on the bottom, that stays the same for right now. Now that 2 times 2 actually becomes 4, x, the cube root of y, over the denominator. But here, because of the whole 4's, they actually cross out. So we really don't have to, well, what I did next, was this one. You're not supposed to have it in the bottom. So you're supposed to move it to the top, because remember, negative exponents, when you move them either to the top or to the bottom, they change their sign. So this negative in the bottom, you switch it to the top, and it becomes a positive. So in the bottom, we're just going to have 4y. Now here, since we have a 4 on top and a 4 on the bottom, they cross out. That x and x to the third, remember here's a 1, you're multiplying to actually add your exponent. So it becomes x to the fourth, the cube root of the y divided by y. And that right there would be the answer to that. So this has to do with a lot of rules of exponents. Now, when you look at 19 right there, since it's the same base, what do? You just subtract them. When you're looking at 13, it's the same base. So what do you do with your exponents? You add them because it's multiplication. When you look at 15, when they're outside like that, what do? Just multiply them. Now when you look at 21, 5 and square root of 3, can you add them? If you really can't, well, could you at least just put x raised to the power of 5 plus x to the third? So these are just little hints that you could use to actually answer the other questions. Now I'm going to work on number 26, but before that, let me show you this quick example. 3 square root of 2 plus 5 square root of 2. Because they both have the same square root, then you get to work with the front part. What's 3 plus 5? Well, that is 8. So it just becomes 8 square root of 2. So let's look at 26. Now, 26, does it have the same number inside of the square root? It does not. But looking at 45, could it be broken down? What two numbers give you 45? Well, it's 9 and 5. But can't the 9 be broken down? Yep. It's 3 times 3 times 5. Now keep in mind, because this is a square root, you're just looking for a pair of something. And you have a pair of 3. So then this becomes 3 square root of 5. Let me bring back the rest. 5 square root of 5 minus 3 square root of 5. That right there gives me 5 minus 3, 2. Square root of 5 stays put. So we're just subtracting those numbers up in the front. And the square roots of 5 stays the same. Now the last problem that we're doing is going to be number 29. Now 29, the problem is there's something outside, a 2 and a 1/3, so that needs to be distributed to everything inside. So the first one stays 3, 1/2 times 2 is just 1x, or x to the 1 power. 3 times 2 is y to the 6. Over here, 3 times 1/3 is just x. 18 times 1/3 is x to the 6. Y to the 6. So if you look, it has the same thing right there. X, y to the 6, x, y to the 6. Don't forget, in front of this one, we have a 1. So what is 3 minus 1? Well, it's 2. X, y to the 6. So that right there would be my answer. The goal is for you to finish the rest of the worksheet on your own. Try your best. If you have questions, please do wait for them until tomorrow. Thank you. Bye.